Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability winner announcement. I'm delighted to be with all of you. My name is Natalie Gochner, and I'm an Associate Dean of the David Eccles School of Business, which houses Ivory Innovations. I'm also the Director of the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. My colleagues here study the Utah housing market and economy, and we have a significant interest in housing affordability. The Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability was started 3 years ago to award innovation and creativity in tackling the challenge of housing affordability. It's a tool to help our nation address the very serious housing challenges that we face. Over the past 3 years, we've been able to identify more than 500 ideas from across the country and recognize remarkable efforts to address these issues. But the challenges continue to grow. The Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability was started and it will help us look at challenges in 3 areas: construction and design, finance, and regulatory and policy. Quickly, I think many of us understand the housing market is candidly in a unique period. The COVID pandemic accelerated migration out of larger cities and urban settings. Teleworking has opened up new opportunities in markets. We have low interest rates, and they have been met with a nationwide housing shortage. And then most recently, we have material costs skyrocketing. This is all leading to an affordability crisis, not just on the coasts, but much more so in prosperous regions across the country. I know personally that in the state of Utah, where I live and where the Ivory Prize was founded, the problems related to housing affordability are rampant. Utah was recently noted as both the best place to find a job, that was noted in the Wall Street Journal, and the region with the most acute shortage of housing. That's a small interior western state. For much of the past 40 years, Utah has always been ahead of growth. But now our shortage began in 2010 and has accumulated to now over 50,000 units. At current pace, it will take us 7 to 20 years to close that gap. Predictably, in the past 5 years, prices have increased 60%, and the median sales price is now far beyond the median household income. So what can we do? Well, one thing that we know for sure, this is a national issue. The President and Congress are looking for creative solutions. Those of us associated with the Ivory Prize applaud that effort. But we also recognize that the answers are complex and challenging and often require local and state grassroots efforts. These ideas and knowledge gained from the Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability have proven that important and creative ideas can originate at the local and state level and within the private sector. And it's really the combination of these that will get after this very challenging problem. Importantly, these ideas that come out of the local and state level and private sector illuminate several directions or themes, I'll call them, as we collectively strive to address housing affordability. We will announce the winners of the Ivory Prize shortly. But first, I want to quickly highlight and illustrate these 6 themes to help achieve housing affordability through the lens of the top 10 Ivory Prize finalists in 2021. And as I do that, I want to thank the supporters of the Ivory Prize, including the Stokes Foundation, Weyerhaeuser, the Charles Koch Foundation, BMC, Dominion, the Larry H. Miller Foundation, the Autodesk Foundation, ABC Supply, Intermountain Healthcare, and Simpson Strong Tie. Now, what innovative themes are we seeing rising to the top? I mentioned there's 6 of them. Theme number 1, innovation to build faster, increase productivity, and lower costs. We have 3 finalists that are meeting this charge. Bamcore, Icon, and Curtis and Ginsberg Architects are all utilizing new approaches to change what has been the last major industry sector to have technological improvement. Let me quickly focus on Icon from Austin, Texas, that is working to provide dignified houses at scale by leveraging robotics, 3D printing technology, software, and advanced materials to achieve dramatic improvements in speed, quality, and resilience. Theme number 2, creative finance to allow more people to qualify for a mortgage and buy a home, and to provide more affordable rental housing. Keep By Framework from Boston, Massachusetts has developed computer technology to guide new home buyers with an emphasis on first-time, first-generational homeowners through the entire process of purchasing a home, with a keen focus to confront structural and persistent racial barriers. Theme number 3, assisting renters to improve their financial position and credit scores to help them achieve homeownership. Axe Housing, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, provides a replicable model that has enabled more than 950 families to purchase and rehabilitate distressed properties into stable homes through homebuyer education, a path to attain a loan, and support in the home rehabilitation process. Theme number 4, using existing housing and land to provide greater housing opportunity. Silvernest, based in Denver, Colorado, takes advantage of existing homes through a home sharing automated platform, utilizing new COVID-conscious tools that provides low-cost ways to increase the supply of housing for renters while generating supplemental income for empty nesters, boomers, and those with extra space. 2 more themes. Number 5, preserve and produce affordable housing in neighborhoods building on the people and strengths of the community. The Housing Impact Fund in Charlotte, North Carolina, provides for the preservation and rehabilitation of existing homes through an innovative social impact equity fund that will assist thousands of residents that earn between 30 and 80% of the median income to secure naturally occurring affordable housing in neighborhoods across the city. And finally, theme number 6, remove regulatory barriers at the local, state, and federal level to allow more houses and apartments to be built and reduce the time and cost of building. Here we go to the City of Pasadena, California ADU program, which provides comprehensive assistance for homeowners in designing, financing, permitting, constructing, and removing the barriers for new ADUs to provide housing for low-income Section 8 households. And it can serve as a model for cities nationwide. Well, with those themes introduced, it will now be our great pleasure to present the winners of the Ivory Prize for Housing Affordability. These presentations will be followed by a short panel with our winners and Clark Ivory, founder of the Ivory Prize. So first, in the category of construction and design, we will have Ryan Smith, who serves on our advisory board and the person who many call the national expert for modular construction, to announce our winners. Ryan is the director of the School of Design and Construction and professor of architecture at Washington State University. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm really excited about this year's construction and design winners. And over the past 3 years, we've seen some extremely promising innovations, including previous winners, Factory OS and Integra, who are both working to make construction efficient and productive. And this year, we have 2 winners in the design and construction category. Let me introduce our first winner, and we'll watch a short video. And then I'll announce the second winner. Sustainable Bamboo with Bamcore is this year's co-winner in the construction and design category. Lumber prices have skyrocketed and more than 300% since April 2020, if you've watched the news, causing the average price of a new single-family home to increase by nearly $36,000. And Bamcore's early stage innovative bamboo-based framing solution has the potential to address this rise in material costs and provides a more climate positive supply chain, reducing the need for skilled labor and speeding up the time of construction and building by more than 50%. This produces a much more energy efficient home. So let's learn more about Bamcore.
So we know that we have a housing and building crisis, and we know we have a climate crisis. Put those two together, we need to build more, and then you come down to the fact that we've been building with wood, but nature's fastest growing carbon fiber is timber bamboo. When you put bamboo and wood together in an engineered solution, you can have a stronger material, you can change the way we build, you can complete your construction faster, you can lower the cost of your construction, you can reduce the waste, and then the resulting building can be thermally and acoustically higher performing and provide long-term benefits to the owner, whether it's a rental apartment or it's an owner-occupied.
So because of the strength of timber bamboo and engineered with wood products, we have been able to figure out how to span a cavity with about 80% less of the traditional vertical members that you would have in a typical construction wood frame building. Right out of the gate, you're at least 20% more efficient if you were to build a like building. And again, that is directly contributing to the fact that our framing factor is so much less. If you're able to see into this wall to visually observe how much insulation can actually go into this without all of the studs inside.
So one of the great constraints we have in building today against a huge demand to build is we don't have the labor. So one of the things that is baked into our process is this very simple way to do the vertical framing. The framing crew simply peels off the top panel, puts it in its numbered position, and places them in position all the way around. It's a paint by numbers installation.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm the Director of Fabrication here at Bamcore, and today we are going to cut this panel. Let's go cut it.
So after we manufacture the panels, we still have to custom fabricate them to the individual job as part of our industrialized construction. And to do that, we use a one-of-a-kind machine that prints on one end all of the instructions that the field installation crew will need to see, and it will cut the panel to millimeter accuracy to fit the exact design of the vertical framing. The general metric that we use is it's about 50% faster than conventional framing.
So we're a little sentimental. In our office, we actually have the very first Bamcore building that we did. The entire 1,700 square foot house on one single flatbed. Pad was prepped by 9 in the morning, and the walls were up and essentially ready to start to frame your trusses the very second day, so the very next day. A month later, the house was completely dried in and ready to live.
The affordable crisis for housing is now. Freddie Mac just released a report saying that the United States alone is 4 million single-family units short in the affordable sector. To make residences more affordable, you have to both lower and improve the construction cost, and you have to lower and improve the operating cost. Because most of the time in the affordable market, it's a rental market. The value has to occur not just in construction, but over time. So if you're lowering the thermal costs, you're improving the acoustical environment, and if you're improving the air leakage, just those alone give the occupants a better environment and the owner a less expensive building to operate, and that translates to lower costs for affordable rentals.
Healthier Buildings with Curtis Ginsberg Architects is this year's co-winner in construction and design. Located in New York City, New York, often sustainability and affordability are competitive goals for development and housing. However, Curtis Ginsberg Architects is pioneering a new approach to break through the budgetary barriers that previously have made building energy efficient and affordable multifamily housing challenging and difficult. Curtis Ginsberg Architects has designed to date the largest completed passive house affordable housing project in the United States. Their primary strategy in designing energy efficient passive house standards is to reduce the operational cost of buildings and in turn maintain affordability long after the building is finished while providing healthier environment for their residents. Let's learn more about this project.
I'm Darby Curtis, founding principal of Curtis Ginsberg Architects, which we founded about 30 years ago. Mark and I had this shared mission of designing for sustainability and enhancing communities, and we're really excited by the fact that we've been able to grow and enhance that over the last 30 years.
One of the things about New York is you see people around who are not as well off or comfortable as you are, and you realize how important housing is. For kids who are going to school, having a place they can come home that is comfortable to do homework, and during the pandemic hopefully has Wi-Fi and is comfortable to do all work, but it really becomes a critical factor in allowing people to live meaningful, healthy lives. So this is Park Avenue Green, which is currently the largest affordable passive house in North America. Passive house was developed in Northern Europe about 30 years ago. You need much less heat in the winter and much less cooling in the summer.
My name is Abdullah Darad. I work for Omni New York LLC. We are the developer on Park Avenue Green, which is the largest passive house, residential passive house, affordable passive house in North America.
So we're here on the roof of Park Avenue Green. It's still raining. And as you can see up here are the photovoltaic panels that provide about 25% of the electricity for the building. Behind me are the condenser units for the VRFs that heat and cool the buildings. They're very energy efficient, which is why we use them for our passive house buildings.
Affordability is not just about what you pay for rent, but what your transportation costs are, what your utilities costs are. All of that is included in that. And for the passive house model, the idea is that you move people into an energy efficient building. They will pay less in their utility costs, or the owner will also pay less on his utility side as well.
My name is Diana Figueroa. I'm at 2980 Park Avenue, corner of 153rd. These are my grandkids who live with me. That's Jonathan, that's Jeremy, Jaylene, and that's my sister Noemi. I've lived here for about 2 years. What I love about it is how spacious it is. It's very open. We have a great view. We could see Yankee Stadium from here. We could see the bridges from here. And what I like is how it's quiet. We have good neighbors, and it's very clean. It's very clean here.
The biggest thing is convincing, affordable housing developers to go to passive house standards and to build sustainably is really looking at the long-term energy savings.
Typically, they're going to own these buildings for a long time. And so small energy savings multiplied by 30 and 40 years become a major difference in the profitability of the building.
My name is Samantha Magistro. I'm a principal of Bronx Pro. I'm an affordable housing developer in New York City, primarily in the Bronx. And I work closely with C&G, Curtis & Ginsberg, to design beautiful and sustainable affordable housing projects in New York.
This is 1080 Washington Street.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Sam. Should we check out the progress in the Fortune space?
Yeah, great.
We'll go through the shared security booth and let's see what Dude has for updates for us today.
For-profit developers are mission-driven. They talk about a triple bottom line. They care about making money. They need to make money to stay in business, but they also care about their residents and appreciate and want to help deal with the major housing crisis we have.
Whenever we open up any of these affordable housing lotteries, we tend to get, over 100,000 applications. The demand is huge. It seems infinite. You know, the city is doing its best to build more affordable housing, but we're just constantly chasing the growing demand.
It's very affordable. My husband's the only one who works, but with his income and the other incomes that come in, because I have custody of my grandkids, it has allowed us to move here. So it has allowed us to give them a better way of life.
When I was in school and I did affordable housing as a thesis, I was the only one doing that. Now there are a lot of people coming out of school who are very interested in housing and sustainability, and we're very excited to hopefully help solve the issue.
Wow, those videos really tell the story. That was incredible. Thank you, Ryan, and congratulations to Bamcore and Curtis and Ginsberg. Next, we'll move to Lori Goodman, who is the Vice President for Housing Finance Policy and the founder of the Housing Finance Policy Center at the Urban Institute. Lori also serves on the Ivory Prize Advisory Board. Lori will introduce this year's winner in finance. Lori?
Well, thank you very much, Natalie. I'm very excited about this year's winner in finance. You can certainly say we've had an unprecedented period for the housing market. As Natalie shared in her opening, there are a number of finalists in this category that are having a big impact, from working to improve homebuyer and homeowner education, rehabbing and preserving naturally occurring affordable housing, and developing innovative solutions to create supplemental income for homeowners and those needing affordable rental opportunities. We applaud all their efforts. This year's winner in the finance category is Keep by Framework. Keep by Framework helps homebuyers understand the process to purchase a home and how best to maintain and stay in that home for the long term. With an emphasis on first-time, first-generation potential homeowners, Keep guides users through the entire process of purchasing a home, with a keen focus on how to assist homebuyers confronting structural and persistent racial barriers to democratize the home buying process. Let's learn more.
You are in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Several members of the Framework team live and work in the area, which is called the Pioneer Valley. We also have a team in Boston, but I live here and love it. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a fourth-generation New Yorker. My father grew up in the housing projects in the Bronx, and my mother grew up deep in the heart of Brooklyn. And both of my parents are artists. And in the 1970s, when they were actually pregnant with me and the city was just emerging out of bankruptcy, they had an opportunity to buy a house, and they didn't. They didn't have any family money. They didn't have any money because they're artists. And they didn't have any models of home ownership in their lives to say this is a good decision. Flash forward, 30 some odd years of renting and helping to build the neighborhood that my brother and I grew up in, they were displaced. Home ownership is really about wealth, of course, but it's also about housing stability and the ability to really reap the benefits of neighborhood change that my parents helped to create but couldn't benefit from.
Framework Homeownership is a social enterprise with a mission to democratize homeownership. We help first-generation and first-time homeowners access the information and tools they need to make confident, informed decisions about homeownership.
The idea for Framework emerged out of that housing crisis of 2008. And what we saw was that millions of people were losing their homes, and those were not people who had had access to home buyer education before they purchased. And so what we said was, how can we do this differently? So our first product that we launched in 2012, coming out of the housing crisis, is a home buyer course.
Well, I think first of all, there's a lot of myths about homeownership. So people think that they need like 20% down or they need a certain credit score to access homeownership, and that can just sort of stop them in their place from even thinking about it. For folks who kind of get further than that, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of different resources, and people don't know who to trust.
What we don't want is we don't want someone for the biggest financial transaction of their lives to close their eyes and sign on the dotted line, you know, like, tell me when it's over.
So we learned a lot with the Framework homeownership course, but it is very much focused on the home buying side of things. And what we learned through customer research and just through being part of the industry is that folks really need support along the full customer journey. So as they're thinking about homeownership, as they're buying, and then as homeowners.
What really needs to happen is people stay in their homes, and that also came out of what we saw in the housing crisis when we saw people losing their homes at such scale, and really wealth being stripped from people, many people of color and first generation, first time home buyers, homeowners. And we said we don't want that to happen ever again. And so we want to give people up front when they're making those home buying decisions, the tools to make those decisions. And then also we want to support them over the long term. So with the Keep Home app, we've taken the stellar curriculum and the idea of using technology to get to scale that the Framework Homebuyer course has, and we've translated that into an app that is not only packaging and repackaging that home buyer information, but also supporting people over the long term.
We know that down payments are a huge barrier to home ownership for folks. And so helping people not only realize that there are 3% down products out there, but also giving them a product that gives access to that is a huge part of what we do. On the home ownership side, we've also piloted something called the repair funds lookup, because we know that repairs in the first year or so for folks is a big barrier for sustaining home ownership.
It supports people as they're making those other critical financial decisions around maintenance and repairs, around budgeting, whether or not to refinance, how to use equity wisely. All of these really important critical questions that kind of make or break whether someone is successful at home ownership.
So one of the things that I love about my work is supporting people to gain access to home ownership. So it's about security for folks, it's about financial security and security for their family, but also I think it's just foundational. We all need a home. We all need a place to go back to, and to feel like we can be there for as long as we want to be. That's just foundational to thriving in this world. And so the fact that I get to do that and support that every day is amazing.
Thank you, Lori, and congratulations, Keep Home by Framework. I plan to download the Keep Home app a little later today. Truly remarkable work. Next up, we're in the Public Policy and Regulatory Reform category, and to present our winner, we have Chris Herbert, who leads the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies, also serves on the advisory board for the Ivory Prize. Chris, tell us about our winner.
Thank you, Natalie. Public policy and regulation can represent significant barriers to housing affordability. But as we found in reviewing the many impressive nominees for this year's prize, there's a growing groundswell of action to improve how these systems work to have positive systemic impacts on affordability. As Natalie described earlier, this year's finalists present a diverse set of approaches, including a comprehensive solution to developing and financing accessory dwelling units reserved specifically for low-income residents, improving the opportunity for meaningful community input and engagement with new developments, and a program to foster racial equity by assisting prisoner reentry into stable homes. So I'm very pleased and honored to announce that this year's winner for the Public Policy and Regulatory Reform category is Impact Justice, the Homecoming Project. As we know, thousands of Americans are not only priced out of affordable housing, but are often shut out of many housing options. The Homecoming Project is a program that ensures successful reentry back into communities for the formerly incarcerated by providing safe and stable housing and a welcoming host. Through this innovative program, these citizens are able to integrate more easily into the community by quick placement into stable housing. I'm thrilled about this year's winner in the policy and regulatory category. Let's learn more.
Impact Justice was founded in 2015 as a research and innovation shop. The idea being that if we're going to reduce our reliance on police, if we're going to end the over-incarceration of people, and to help those people who were leaving the system to be as successful as possible, we needed actionable ideas.
COVID-19 happened and really exposed this for what it is. You were seeing massive releases take place in the community with people having nowhere to go. And so this was an opportunity for us to really step up and show the gaps in housing. As a formerly incarcerated professional, and what I mean is I'm a professional in this field of criminal justice reform, and I have a formerly incarcerated background, I know all too well what it feels like to anticipate release and not know where you're going to land.
Before you can start to connect to your community and connect to your family and really start to get a job, you need somewhere to live. Because our participants particularly are people that have been sentenced or served more than 10 years in prison, really what the Homecoming Project is doing is providing them a safe place to live in a community that they can begin to now start to put the pieces of their life back together.
I got arrested 3 days after my 19th birthday. I'm 35 now. I lived all my adulthood in prison. I'm glad that I'm in this program because I knew that I was going to face challenges. It doesn't make me feel as overwhelmed because it lets me just be me and it's on my own pace.
Homelessness is one option of housing for people getting out of prison. Another one is transitional housing. Transitional housing is expensive, it has a lot of rules and regulations.
I went through transitional housing. I was able to see my family more when I was in prison than when I was in a transitional housing program. So that level of reintegration was not there.
I don't want anybody else having to come through that. I don't want them welcomed home with going from one institution to another. I want it to be more people-centered. That inspired me to get this house. I want somebody to come home and be really welcomed home. We could sit down and we can be a family and build relationships.
Can you tell a little bit about yourself? Most of my time in the transitional, it was the same feeling I had in prison. The difference is here, you know, it's the first time there's really been like freedom, and it's hard to put into words the way I feel.
It makes all of our hearts flutter when we're able to say we have a 0% recidivism rate.
So I think it's really important to say like what that means is literally everyone that's been into our program, none of them have re-entered prison.
How have you been? Well, super blessed now, right? Even more so.
The Homecoming Project is built upon the ideas that we've learned from the sharing economy. You can go to an Airbnb tonight and know very little about the host. In the Homecoming Project, we actually put people in homes and we tell the participant, the person leaving prison, everything we can about the host, and they get to even meet and interview that host. And we tell the host everything we can about that participant.
I'm learning a lot of things that they actually go through just by listening. I just need to get to know more about what they have to deal with and having patience and having the drive to want to help them even more.
The money that goes into our housing program goes back into the community, stimulating our local economy, helping housing stability for our homeowners, changing the narrative for how people look and view formerly incarcerated individuals. When someone builds a relationship to their community, to their host, then they become more invested. Then they become more excited about giving back and seeing it thrive. It makes the community safer.
We don't pick the successful people. I think we give people the opportunity to be successful. And when you give people that chance, when you give them the tools and the resources, then almost anything is possible. And that's what we're seeing.
I feel like every goal that I have set for myself is something new in my life, and it's something that I feel so proud. Today, when I'm able to set all those goals and accomplish them, even just little things, just to get my driver's license, I have never been able to do those things before.
We at Impact Justice lead with that there is a criminal justice problem in this country. You're here because there is a housing crisis. They are all connected. And I think what we are seeing more and more is that to solve the criminal justice problem requires more than just a criminal justice solution.
A real safe business theory is to not try to reinvent the wheel. At Impact Justice, we're going to try to reinvent that wheel.
That was powerful. Thank you so much. Well, now we get to have a brief panel discussion with our winners, and I want to go ahead and invite people to submit questions in the chat box as you like. But what a fantastic group, and I'm excited to learn from all of them. So let's start with impact justice, and I want to introduce Alex and Aisha with impact justice. Aisha and Alex, incredible work by you and your team. Given the past year and this nationwide focus on racial inequality, the work you and your team are doing seems even more important. As other communities see your efforts, how are you looking at scale?
Yeah, Alex, I'll start. So happy to be here, and thank you so much for this great honor. We can't say how wonderful this is. I think the truth is that yes, there has been such a national look at racial disparities and inequities across the country. But the truth is, in the work that we do, we cannot disassociate racial disparities from the work we do. We work in prisons and jails, which are predominantly Black and brown. And so although there's a kind of a new focus on that, that's always our focus, because in the way the criminal justice system is set up, there is a disproportionate amount of people in prisons that are Black and brown. And so that is why programs like the Homecoming Project are so necessary. What we know is there's people leaving prison all across this country, and there are people who need homes all across this country that are leaving prison. And the Homecoming Project, again, targets those folks, and those folks are, again, Black and brown. So we're so excited to be able to offer a program that really provides the human right and the dignity of providing a safe place for folks to live and to land when they're leaving incarceration.
One of the great strengths of the Homecoming Project is it's not just for California, it's not just for Oakland. We've built this with the entire country in mind. Every state is confronting people getting out of prison who need a home, who need a safe place to go, who need a relationship. And so for us, the scalability is built on a foundation of replicability, right? That with funding and with support and community engagement, we're able to do this project everywhere in the country. Thank you, Alex and Aisha too. Well, let's jump to our friends over at Bamcore. Hal and Zach, I'll ask you to join us. It is so amazing to hear about your efforts to make building more efficient and sustainable. There is no secret at this point, there is an extreme lumber shortage and cost increases. Can you speak to how Bamcore is looking to scale to help be a solution and really impact affordability, especially in this environment?
Well, you're right, Natalie. Lumber is really hurting affordability in housing across the entire nation. And I'll add to that the permanent reduction in the construction labor force is also a significant factor. As Bamcore scales up, we think our prime wall solution offers these lumber and labor trends and offsets them in three ways. First, bamboo is the dominant component in our wall system, and the bamboo market globally does not follow the lumber market. It is independent of it, and so the prices have not risen like they have in the lumber market. Second, our paint by number installation method reduces both the labor and time to complete the build. And third, because we deliver fully customized millimeter accurate a kit of parts for the wall assembly, the waste on the job is reduced to almost zero in any wood that's required and any siding that's required. As a society, we don't think we can address the building crisis unless we change both the material and the method. And at Bamcore, we're trying to do that as we strive to lower the carbon, the cost, and the labor of building. And we think we hit affordability out of the park if we do that.
Thank you. Very interesting. Anything more you two want to say?
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you for being a part of this. It's a great honor. I mean, we're among an amazing team here, not only with Ivory but internally. And it's a hill to climb, but we climb it together.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's sure a theme. We do climb it together, and I love your approach. I would like to just encourage our viewers. It looks like the best way to get a question in for this discussion is to email us at info@ivoryinnovations.org. So info@ivoryinnovations.org. Well, now let's turn to finance and Keep Home by Framework. Danielle's going to join us. Danielle, congratulations to you and all of your efforts to assist home buyers before and after the purchase of a new home. What do you think has been the biggest impact of the Keep Home app and the efforts that you've put out there?
Well, thank you so much. I mean, first, I really just want to say thank you to Ivory Innovations and the advisory committee, as well as the amazing other finalists here today. You know, Framework is so thrilled and honored to be here, and the whole process has really been incredible. We've learned so much along the way. And so regarding impact, in January, Framework celebrated a really significant milestone of reaching 1 million homebuyers with our homebuyer course. And that means that there are now more than 1 million mostly first-time, first-generation homeowners who have access to education and tools to guide them in these critical financial decisions. And what we know is that while we're very proud of our impact and our reach thus far, we see that our biggest impact is still to come. What we know is last year, Framework served about 15% of the first-time homebuyer market, which means simply that there is so much more potential, so much more opportunity to reach home buyers and you know, go even farther with our work. And now through Keep Home, what we can do is we can not only reach them at the home buying moment, but also support them throughout their journey. And then of course, it's not so simple because Framework's impact goes even farther. We are a social enterprise, and we are looking to really disrupt systems of inequality around how people access information. And so what that really means for us specifically is we're seeking to impact the system that dictates how people make critical major financial decisions about buying a home and then staying in the home over the long term. So I think homeownership, you know, is so complex, and information asymmetry, which means simply that in a financial transaction, one player knows something the other does not. We see that as a market imperfection. So really what we see is that our greatest potential impact is addressing and impacting the entire ecosystem. Home buyers who can make those critical financial decisions with confidence because they have those tools and that education they need. Homeowners who know how to use equity wisely to stay in their homes for the long term. But then for the mortgage finance system, both of those outcomes, the prepared consumer that moves more efficiently through the system and the homeowner that stays for the long term, that impacts the mortgage finance system and any other player in that ecosystem that touches those folks. And so we're just so excited to be here because this just underscores how critically important that vision is shared. And so, you know, we look forward to leveraging the Ivory Prize to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. You know, the common theme that I see is everybody is making a difference, a meaningful difference, and that's the spirit of the Ivory Prize. We're getting some questions, so I'll remind people, info@ivoryinnovations.org. Let's turn to Curtis and Ginsberg Architects, introduce Mark and Crystal, who will join us here. Mark and Crystal, it is often thought that sustainability and affordability are at odds with each other. But you found a way at Curtis and Ginsberg to show that it isn't just possible, you've done it at a scale in a high-cost market. So the question is, how have you struck the balance between sustainability and affordability?
Well, thank you, Nadine. I'd like to thank the Ivory Foundation. It's really an honor for us to be recognized among these incredible organizations. And we really are very honored and to have the ability to even expand on what we're doing and spread it nationwide is really exciting. I'm Darby Curtis, the partner of Curtis Ginsburg. Sustainability and affordability really work hand in hand when you look at it as the bigger picture, not just the initial construction cost. Long-term affordability means simplifying operations for building managers and lowering utility costs for residents and owners. Balancing first costs and operational costs is a big part of that, along with the benefits of creating healthy, comfortable, and sustainable environments for residents and communities. And Passive House and the value of Passive House really allows us to make this happen. We use our experience and research early in projects to develop concepts and systems that meet stringent requirements in the simplest ways possible. This involves often using off-the-shelf items, sometimes in new ways, sometimes working with manufacturers to develop new products or adapt existing products so that we can bridge any missing gaps to obtain the high performance necessary for these buildings. We also, whenever possible, like to work with the construction team early in the process so we can review details, reduce redundancies, simplify construction, and for those who are not familiar with the passive house requirements, really educate them on what to look for and what needs to be met as I go into construction. The other great thing as we've been doing more and more of these buildings is as buildings are completed, we're able to collect data, which allows us to understand and improve on our work. We can then share that data with the design and affordable housing community, which enables them and us to create material to convince funders, municipalities, and owners and clients to use sustainable and the values of sustainability. We believe that creating mass market adoption of these sustainable guidelines will also drive costs down. While New York and other large cities are high market, multifamily provides an economy of scale, and we try to maximize benefits available in that economy of scale in the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Darby. Mark, would you like to make some comments?
No, just to add to thank our office and also all our clients who make it all possible.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, we have a question. This question is, I'll ask it of each of you. For each winner, what's the one thing that could change in the market or in policy that would increase the adoption of your approach? So the one thing that could change in the market or in policy that would help with your approach. And let's go to impact justice first.
That's an excellent question. There are many things, right? I would actually focus quickly on two of them. One, as an innovative program in almost every state, putting people in somebody else's home is a liability issue. So having reform to the insurance laws and have the insurance companies be more willing to work with nonprofits like ours, churches, other religious institutions who provide housing would be extremely helpful in mitigating that risk. The second is, candidly, Airbnb. They have access to more hosts and homeowners in America than anybody else. We always say, if they're listening, please reach out to us, right? Because we want your hosts. We will pay them, we will put people in their homes, and as we say in that video, you as a homeowner will know more about that person than any other Airbnb or sharing economy participant.
Danielle, let's go to you with Keep Home by Framework. One thing that you would change.
I think the one thing, it's not a small thing, the one thing I would change is really the status quo of how people go about making the biggest financial decision of their lives, buying a home. I would change that process so that people first know that they have access to unbiased information before they go into those financial transactions.
Okay, very good. And why don't we go back to Curtis and Ginsburg, Darby, Mark, or Crystal?
More of an emphasis on operational costs than first costs, and having lenders and government agencies really appreciate that, as many are starting to do.
Okay, Bamcore, we're going to you now, Hal and Zach.
So we would say, if you look at where we're headquartered in California, California has one of the most stringent energy code guidelines in the United States, if not the most stringent. And one of the things that we need to look at, or that would be good across the industry, not just in a few select markets, is the ability to sustainably build a thermal envelope. That's where you have upfront operational costs that you can account for, as well as over a life cycle of operational costs. Some of our biggest energy savings come from having a very tightly in superior envelope, whether it's our material or any other material. That's a way that's a way to get there.
That'll drive down the operational costs. And when you drive down the operational costs, you're increasing affordability pretty significantly.
Yep.
Very good. All right, we have a question about the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, NHIA, legislation that's looking to address home value and appraisal gaps in single-family markets. The questioner is asking if any of our winners are excited about this bill and the mechanism it proposes to respond to this growing market challenge. Do you see it as an avenue to address racial inequities that have been systemic failings of the mortgage industry? Anyone want to tackle that one? Go ahead, Danielle. If you're following it.
I am certainly not the Lori is probably the biggest expert on this panel who can answer that question. But what I would say is that in terms of racial inequity and the systemic the history of systemic racism in homeownership in particular, it is so complex, and there are so many different areas that need to be targeted in order for us to fix this broken system. And appraisal gaps and appraisals is one area, one of many, one of several. So while I am not an expert on the legislation and I can't really speak to all the details, I will say that anything that seeks to address gaps, appraisal gaps that are steeped in this history of systemic racism in the housing market is something that we get behind.
Thank you, Danielle. Anyone else? Don't feel any pressure. I got plenty of questions. Okay, let me go to this one. This is a really interesting one. This one deals with technology, and the questioner is saying the housing sector is known for a lack of innovation and stagnant productivity growth. In many cases, things have been done the same way for 100+ years. So, however, we are seeing an increasing amount, including several of our finalists and winners, bringing new technology into this sector. What challenges do you see as we benefit from these technological shifts? And maybe we'll go to Bamcore first.
Well, I think we agree with the observation, sadly, that the building environment, the built sector, is one of the lowest innovating sectors post-World War II. And that had been a big topic for McKinsey and company. And a lot of people noticed that it has the lowest rate of innovation. It's like 0.2% compared to 4% or higher in all the other sectors. So why is that the case? It's hard to understand exactly why it's the case. But the building sector, especially in the United States, is a highly fractionated industry. It's not a highly consolidated industry. It tends to be very specific by market. And I think one of the reasons is people have a general preference to want to live in their home, not their neighbor's home. So exact cookie cutter solutions that can drive down the cost are not typically that well embraced. There is in front of us now, though, technology, which we use and others can use, to do mass customization in a field that's developing called industrialized construction. And that has to do with powering and harnessing technology. And as that happens, I think we can have an interaction between the two worlds of bringing down affordability and at the same time maintaining the mass customization that people prefer. I think the industry is getting there now, but it can't be a fast adoption because there are so many individual players in the built environment.
Just to add to that, Natalie, this is Clark. Great response by Hal. I think that there has been a hesitancy amongst municipalities, building officials, and others to really embrace innovation and change. And I do believe that their attitudes are starting to shift. I think they're starting to be more open. And this has sort of reached such a crisis level now in terms of our ability to deliver affordable housing and to impact it in so many different ways that I think people are now starting to be more open to it. And I think that even this pandemic of the last year has helped magnify everyone's understanding that housing is in crisis, that we need to do more to help people to be able to afford both rental housing and ownership housing. There's so many things that we need to do. And I'm hopeful that because of this challenging time that we've been through, that many who in the past have perhaps gotten in the way of innovation and progress are now going to embrace it. And there will be hundreds and literally thousands of small companies and individuals all over the country that will work on a lot of the kind of solutions that we've seen today. We've been very excited to see over 500 companies, entrepreneurs, and organizations that have gotten involved with us, and they are all pushing the envelope on innovation and change, and that's going to continue to roll forward. And the likes of these amazing companies that have been featured today are going to continue to proliferate throughout the United States. Their examples are great. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. I hope we end up with all kinds of people copying these ideas all over the place.
Very good. Thank you, Clark. Okay, just a quick lightning round, and then I'm going to turn it over to Clark. But I would just love each of you, and this is not easy, to, in one word, describe what you see in the year ahead for housing affordability. What's the one word to describe what you see in the year ahead for housing affordability? Alex and Aisha, too, I'm going to you first. You get the tough assignment to go first.
One word, I would say possible.
Oh, I love it. Possible. Danielle?
One word, partnership.
Like that. Let's go to Hal and Zach with Bamcore.
Progress, and we put the word initial in front of it.
Very nice. And Darby, Mark, or Crystal with Curtis and Ginsburg. One word.
Low carbon.
Very nice. Well, congratulations to our winners. I've really been inspired by hearing from you and learning from you. I'm now going to turn the time over to Clark Ivory. He's the founder of the Ivory Prize. And Clark, we'd love to hear your concluding comments.
Hey, Natalie, thank you so much for everything you've done today and as an advisor to Ivory Innovations. I appreciate every member of our board. They've been so engaged and they've really helped drive this forward. I'm also very appreciative of the student teams that have been so engaged and involved. It's been amazing to see that the up and coming generation really cares about this issue, and it's a good thing because they're going to be impacted by it more than anyone else. And so as we've worked with a number of students in our innovation course, as we've had students that have vetted out these 500 companies, they're learning tons of stuff, and many of them are going to work for the companies that they're getting to know better. So I'm very excited. I'm very encouraged by all the efforts that are going into innovation in our housing space. It's critical. We've got to find solutions in construction and design, in regulatory reform and finance, and we saw some great examples today. I also want to just say that while it won't be one answer to a very big challenge, that is housing affordability, it will be thousands of answers that all come together and will start to snowball and really make a difference. Natalie, if you were to ask me one word that I hope I won't be saying next year, it's lumber, because it's incredible as we've watched the average cost of a home in the US increase by $36,000. Probably more now, because that's based upon lumber pricing 2 weeks ago. And think about the impact that's having on our industry. Hopefully we're going to figure out how to diversify our product offering. Hopefully we're going to figure out how to move forward with new materials, with new ways of innovating in construction and design. And of course, hopefully we can solve a lot through regulatory reform. You know, this morning when I got up and read our daily paper, the Salt Lake Tribune, I saw the headlines in there: state leaders challenged to invest more in affordable housing. And that was the front page. That would have never been the front page in the last 10 years, but in the last 18 months, housing affordability is being talked about all the time. This is something that is just so vital right now, and finally, everyone is seeing that. So it's time for us to rally together, to support one another, to continue to collaborate, also that we can have an impact on housing affordability. I'm grateful for everyone who has joined us today. Each one of you can have an impact. Join with us at Ivory Innovations. Let us know if we can share with you any of our information or data. We're totally open source. We want to share every good idea that we can come up with anyone across the country. So let's keep it up. It was a fabulous year, and I hope we continue to make amazing strides as we impact many families and individuals who truly, truly are being left out of our housing puzzle. This is a great opportunity for us to have an impact. Thanks again for joining us today, and thank you, Natalie, so much for emceeing this event. Till next year.